Welcome to Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse, a podcast exploring cult classics, subculture, and geek media. I'm Nick.
And I'm Dave.
And we will be your tour guides for this deep dive of John Milius' 1982 pulp fantasy action adventure, Conan the Barbarian.
So what did you think this was going to... Was this going to live up to your memory? Because I know you love this movie.
I love this movie. It's probably one of my top 10 favorite movies of all time. Mm-hmm. It hasn't been so long since I watched it that I was worried about it.
Did you see the Jason Momoa version?
I actually, because I've been living Conan for the last 2 weeks, I actually watched it a couple days ago. It's bad. It's really bad.
I haven't seen it.
I do not like that movie, but... on my rewatch, where I wasn't just living my geek disappointment, I can admit Momoa is great in it.
Sure,
he's a much more book accurate Conan than Arnold is.
Speaking of the books, did you go through and read the books or listen to them again?
Am almost done with the third volume. So
I noticed on Audible, not to plug them, and I added it to my wish list. I'll probably get it. You can get volume 1 through 17 for a single credit.
I'm going to recommend against that one.
No?
So it's incomplete.
But
It's
so much for so little.
You're better off with the 3 volumes.
Individually.
So there's The Coming of Conan, the Cimmerian, The Bloody Crown of Conan, and The Conquering Sword of Conan.
Okay.
And those 3 books together contain all of Howard's, everything he wrote on Conan, and a bunch of supplementary material.
Oh, okay.
The other one just has the stuff that's in public domain, basically. It's kind of, it's not like official, but it's like... it's what they can print.
Yeah, it's old enough that they can make a thing of it. But
yeah.
Now, so the one that's 1, 2, and 3 is some of it is still owned by the estate and stuff, so that it's more complete. Okay.
Yeah, and you get the supplementary material, so it's worth it to get the 3 volumes.
Gotcha. I'm gonna do that. I'm still working on The Expanse. Each one of those books is pretty long, and I'm trucking though.
So I had not been back to these books for a long time because I read the 60s versions of them, which had a lot of... They were chopped up and put in chronological order, which is not how Howard wrote them. Sure. And Lesprog de Camp and Lynn Carter wrote supplementary material to fill in the gaps between the stories. Okay. So this is actually my first time going through just the Howard stories.
You think it's better this way?
I think it gives you it's a very different picture because he would tell...
It's like a Tarantino movie.
Yeah, because he would show you the very first story, The Phoenix on the Sword, is a King Conan story.
Oh, okay.
So he would jump around from King Conan to Thief Conan to Pirate Conan to Soldier Conan.
I think Thief Conan's my favorite Conan.
I really like the pirate stories.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But
that sounds cool.
Yeah. So anyways, yes, I've been binging the 3 audiobooks, which are all in the sort of 30-hour.
So what did you summarize this as? What genre did you put it as?
I called it pulp fantasy action adventure.
Okay, I couldn't really come up with a good one that was going to be anywhere near yours, so I just went with this very simple sword and sorcery epic.
Yeah,
there's not a ton of sorcery, but I actually think that helps it.
Yeah, Howard is Howard's sort of fantasy is very grounded in reality, where there's not a lot of high-powered magic. There's not fire-breathing dragons really at all. Yeah. There's not a bunch of elves and dwarves and things like that. It's a very gritty fantasy.
Yeah, everything kind of seems like it could have existed on Earth.
Yeah,
if mythology stuff was real.
Yeah, basically, because it's all set in the Hyborian Age, which is a fictional time period, 10,000 years before recorded history. And the Hyborian map is it's not a full Pangea, but it's Europe, Asia, and North Africa mashed together into a supercontinent.
It's interesting because technologically, there's just that doesn't jive with 10,000 years before.
No,
recorded history.
It doesn't, and it doesn't jive with plate tectonics in the slightest.
Yeah.
But I really don't think Howard understood plate tectonics.
And it's fantasy. It's okay.
Because he imagined his eras, because there's an era before the Hyborian Age, which is the time of Atlantis. Mm-hmm. And then there was a great cataclysm when Atlantis and Lemuria sank. And then you have the Hyborian Age, and that had a cataclysm at the end of it. And then the modern world happens after that.
Well, that's interesting. I don't really know much about the deep cut Conan lore, but I'm sure once I start reading these books, and I won't get the 1 through 17, I'll do the 1 through 3.
Yeah.
I did go insane recently on Audible when they had like a
that
summer
big sale
where like titles were like $2 or $3. Mm-hmm. And so I went to some series that I'm really interested in, or I read a long time ago, like when I was a kid or whatever, and I wanted to revisit them. And it was like, oh, I can get each one for $2. Okay, I'm gonna buy the whole series. I ended up spending like $70 or something, which is a lot, except for that I got
so
like
much
1,000 hours worth of listening. Maybe not 1,000, but literally hundreds of hours of really good stories.
I should have, because that's when I got Shogun, was when that sale was going on, and I should have just got all the James Clavell books for $3 a pop.
I almost got all the R.A. Salvatore Dark Elf books, but there's like 30 of them. I was like, oh, and some of them were like $10. Most of them were $2 or $3, but like there was just a few here and there. I put them all in my cart, and it was something like just for the Salvatore stuff, it was something like $130. I was like, I don't know. I'm just going to get my favorites, the 3 first ones.
That's a name. I've never read any of those, but it's a name you always see in the fantasy section at the bookstore.
I mean, you've never read a Drizzt Do'Urden book? Mm-mm. Okay, I'm going to suggest that. Okay, we're way off in our intro, but that's fine.
It's a D&D character, right?
It's fine, yeah. Nobody actually ever played him. Mm-hmm. It was just written in a D&D setting in Forgotten Realms. But yeah, it's he's a dark elf, and he's a ranger.
Sure no one ever played him?
I've read... So, okay, let's go in the Wayback Machine. When I was in middle school, a friend of mine recommended this book to me because I was reading some of the Dragonlance books, and he's like, oh, you're going to like the Forgotten Realm ones better. And so he recommended these to me, and so I became a Salvatore superfan in middle school, and I read every book he's published. Like, I stopped at some point. Obviously, there's a bunch I haven't read now. So he had some other series, not D&D related. Mm-hmm. He did a Star Wars one, etc. A bunch of stuff. Anyway, and I follow him on Twitter to this day, and he's pretty outspoken, and he's very responsive. He runs his own Twitter.
Okay.
He just made this stuff up because he was hired by TSR to write licensed novels to sell their product.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, he obviously is a D&D player and all of that. And so you see like D&D character abilities in the stories, but that's not the focus of it all. It's mostly about interpersonal. Okay. It's just a fantasy story.
Yeah.
Anyway, the first 3, the Dark Elf trilogy, which is like Homeland, Exile, and Sojourn. It's the first chronological series. In the chronological, it tracks Drizzt from when he was a baby.
Right.
But it was actually it was a prequel series written after books 4, 5, and 6. Those were actually the first ones, kind of like Star Wars.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so the 4, 5, and 6 were the first ones that hit the public, and they got so popular, he went back and did a 1, 2, 3.
Okay.
And then he did a 7 through 30.
Yeah.
Anyway, so those are really good if you like D&D. All right, so we've kind of rambled on this thing. I liked this movie, always have liked it, still like it. Okay, let's roll for initiative.
Oh, okay. I think you're rolling
12. I am rolling it, and you're rolling mine.
Oh, I got a 3. It does not like me.
All right, I've only got one. I haven't been... I got another on the back burner, but I kind of talked about it already, I think. Anyway, I watched the new... it's not super new, but it's since our last episode.
Yeah.
The red band trailer for Kraven the Hunter, starring Aaron Taylor Johnson. What'd you think about that?
Oh, it looks so awful.
It looks so bad, but so good.
You think so?
It looks bad good. But the thing is that the script is like, okay, like what are the really good Marvel movies? The really good ones.
Like Winter Soldier and Guardians and Iron Man. Yeah.
Iron Man guy wrote this.
Really?
Yeah. The guy who wrote Iron Man scripted this movie. So he wrote this. So Matt Holloway, that's Iron Man guy, and Art Markham, another writer for Marvel, wrote this movie. And I have faith because Iron Man was good.
Okay.
And when I was watching I watched this trailer a couple times, and some of it seems like some cheesy-ish nonsense, like
when he got lion powers.
Because dude, come on, that is not even beyond the pale. How many Spider-Man bullshits have you watched?
That is like a genetically engineered radioactive spider. As far as we can tell, this is just a lion.
No, but this is like spiritual shit. This is like Wakanda stuff. Like we're in Africa. There's magic on the savannah. I can get past that. That doesn't bother me in the least because this is Marvel. They got some dumbass heroes.
It's not Marvel. It's Sony Marvel.
Sure.
So it's not in the MCU. Like this is in a different reality.
Yeah, and he's a lion powered ish. He's a hunter, and he's cool. I remember reading Kraven the Hunter comics when I was a teenager and thinking they were pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
Kraven's Last Hunt is like an iconic comic book.
Yeah, and this just seems really cool, and it has some other really cool characters. Like it has Calypso.
Ooh, I've always liked that character too.
Yeah, it's got Chameleon. It's got the Foreigner, Catch-22, some minor, some deep cuts. And so I first time I watched it, I was like, oof. But then I watched it again with the thought of, what if there's a good script and this trailer was just put together to appeal to the herd, the Marvel herd? And then I watched it with a little bit of a discerning eye as a non-fanboy. Okay. And I thought, I will watch this.
Interesting.
So
I wasn't planning on it.
Watch that red band again. With an Iron Man goggles on.
I really like when he throws a bear trap at the guy and like cuts his head off with it. That's
pretty legit.
I am there for that sort of gonzo over the top violence like that. And I like Aaron Taylor Johnson.
I think he looks great in the role.
Even when he's in bad movies, he's usually good.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I didn't think he looked lame in this at all.
No, I didn't. I don't think he looks bad. I think.
Well, I mean, the acting. His acting is good. He's doing a good job.
He does his job, and Russell Crowe is in it as the mean dad.
Yeah, I can definitely believe that. Russell Crowe, mean dad, sold. All right, what do you got?
My first news item is Pluto TV is adding a 24-hour-a-day Godzilla channel.
Oh, wow.
Which I had to Google what Pluto TV was.
Oh, I have that app on my
Do you?
Roku.
Okay, yeah. So it's one of these internet TV services, like ad-supported, where you can have on-demand content, and then plus they have channels that you can just tune into.
And sometimes there's commercials, like, because it's free. Like, if I can't find a movie for this podcast, usually I can get it ad-supported on Pluto.
On Pluto, or Tubi. Or,
one of those. But Pluto, pretty good about having access to most of it.
So, it's gonna have the as well as like the classic movies. It's also going to have the 90s animated series and the 70s Hanna-Barbera animated series on it. And so the sort of Godzilla nerd corner of the internet's fairly stoked about this because a lot of this stuff hasn't been available on streaming. Okay. So even if it is ad supported, there's going to be a lot of content that people have access to now that they didn't have before.
Well, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think I probably will never watch that. Except for maybe for this podcast. I might,
at some point.
Or maybe a different podcast.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Something in the future. Yeah. And then, do you have another item?
No, go ahead. Mine's so niche, only guitar nerds would care.
Oh, just do it. Okay. Just do it.
Paul Reed Smith came out with a new model. And now normally a guitar company coming out with a new model, that's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Because they do that all the time.
And who is Paul Reed Smith?
Paul Reed Smith is a smaller, like, luxury guitar maker. Think of him as kind of like just a high-end maker that is everything's really nice and all of that. Anyway, they've had their own version. They started off with their own guitars. That's their own design and whatnot. But then they made a Les Paul version, and it's like a luxe version of a Les Paul. And recently,
is that like an Epiphone Les Paul where it just has the shape or whatever, or
it's a single cut design, but it's their own slightly different body shape, different headstock.
So they're not light. It doesn't say Les Paul. It just resembles Les Paul.
It's a Les Paul style. And then a couple years ago, you probably heard of famous guitar player John Mayer. He always played a Fender Stratocaster because he's a blues guy. And they made a Stratocaster called a Silver Sky, and it's basically just a Stratocaster but a lot better, a lot nicer. And that was the first new model they'd made like in forever, so everyone was like, holy shit, they just stole Fender's Thunder. Just this last week they just stole Fender's Thunder again. They put out their iconic Telecaster, but better. Like in every way. I watched a bunch of reviews of it, and I was like, okay, I guess I never need a Telecaster because I just buy the better one.
But you're not a Fender guy in general, right?
No, I don't own any Fenders. I've played a lot of them. I had a friend growing up who had a Telecaster that I used to like to play a lot. But there's something nice about that single cut Telecaster. I would never buy a Stratocaster. That's not me at all. But I could definitely get behind a Tele. And this new Paul Reed Smith T-Type, which is just lots of companies have a T-Type guitar because it's Telecaster. It's different enough to be lawsuit proof.
Right.
Anyway, if you're a guitar nerd and you're curious, check it out. They released the base model, and then at the same time they released a signature model. The guy from Alter Bridge, I can't even remember his name. It's not Mark Tremonti, it's the other guy, Miles.
Wow, you're doing good.
Anyway, they released his signature model, which is just slightly different, but it's not as cool as the base model.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. From years and years of going to shows with you, I always note what guitars people are playing because you would always tell me. And so, like, Lisa and I went and saw something a few months ago, and I was like, telling her the different guitars, and she's like, why do you know this? It's like, because Dave tells me this stuff. So now I pay attention to it. See what guitars people play.
Carrie knows the same thing now too, because I just talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
All right, so what's your piece of news?
So my final news is yesterday, James Gunn announced they had cast the new Superman and Lois Lane. And it is it's good casting. David Corenswet and Rachel Brosnan. So David Corenswet,
I'd have changed my damn name.
Maybe I could be pronouncing it wrong.
Is this Cornsweet?
Maybe, but there's not two E's.
Just a nice fella.
Yeah. So he's been on a show on Netflix called Hollywood. I'm not familiar with it, but he looks like Superman. Like he has the look.
He looks exactly like Henry Cavill.
He looks so much like Henry Cavill that I Google lensed a picture of him, and Google said David Corenswet or Henry Cavill. Like it came up with both pictures.
Oh dang! Okay.
So he looks like a
one of those square-jawed, dark-haired guys.
Yeah, a 15 or so year younger Henry Cavill.
Okay.
And then Rachel Brosnan was on the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and she is the titular Mrs. Maisel of that program.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
I haven't watched it either, but it's well regarded. People like that show. And the two of them look perfect. And I trust James Gunn.
And she's playing Lois Lane?
Yeah. They haven't announced Lex. The current rumor is there's a Skarsgård in the running for it, but that's like Mark 6 guys. The actual Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah.
Bezos looks like Lex Luthor.
Yeah, that's true. Bezos would be better.
Yeah. So anyways, I'm sad to see Henry Cavill go, but I think we'll see him again. Honestly,
some Warhammer 40K stuff on Amazon.
There you go, and season 3 of The Witcher, and I think we'll see Kingdom Come Superman at some point. Him as an old, hardened Superman. I think that's going to happen.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, so he'll be back. It's comics. Everyone comes back.
That's true. Even Bucky.
Exactly.
Especially Bucky. He's one of my favorites. All right. So what's our podcast fuel?
Our podcast fuel today is a beer that I've seen for years and years, but I've never had it before. And that's Skull Splitter from the Orkney Brewing in Scotland.
Okay.
They're located
like the Orkney.
Yeah, they're located on the Orkney Islands. Where does it say? 1 mile from the Skara Brae Neolithic site.
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, and the beer is named for Thorfinn Einarsson, who was the 7th Viking Earl of Orkney, and it's a Scotch ale, 8.5 ABV, 23 IBUs. It's sophisticated, satiny, smooth, and full-flavored beer. Rich, fruity wine-like complexity with flavors of fresh and dried fruits, warm exotic spice, and mellow summer fruity notes.
Yeah, this is a really complex profile. This is not like just a swilling beer.
Yeah, normally I don't get this high ABV beers for our podcast, and normally I wouldn't get a Scotch ale in the summertime, but it's got like a Barbarian guy on it, so it's too thematically appropriate.
Yeah, this is good for this theme, but this is not summer drinking beer.
But it's cool down here in the pod cave. We're in a climate controlled conditions.
Yeah. All right, let's go ahead and take a break, and then we will jump back in and deep dive Conan the Barbarian.
Welcome back, divers. Let's dive into Conan the Barbarian, 1982, directed by John Milius. Know, O divers, that between the years when the oceans drank Atlantis and the gleaming cities, and the years of the rise of the sons of Ares, there was an age undreamed of. Hither came Conan the Cimmerian, black-haired, sullen-eyed, sword in hand, a thief, a reaver, a slayer, with gigantic melancholies and gigantic mirth, to tread the jeweled thrones of the earth underneath his sandaled feet.
All right.
I thought I'd paraphrase Howard's Nemedian Chronicles rather than write one of my normal synopsises because it's more fun.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't really summarize the movie.
No, not at all. No, not at all.
So basically, I'll just do it in layman terms.
Okay.
So Conan is born in the Hyborian Age, and his tribe is massacred by snake cultists and a mysterious leader who you don't learn his name right off. And then he's forced to work in a slave mill, and then he eventually becomes a gladiator, and he's trained in the combat arts. He gets free. He meets up with some friends, and then they go to rescue a princess. Classic trope. They do the thief thing on the snake cult. He learns this is the cult that murdered his whole family and his village. Then he defeats the bad guy.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the whole movie.
That covers it.
Fucking good, though.
Yeah. No, I love this movie, but I love all that stuff, and I love their thief montage. And
I love that thief montage. The first one is great. Let's get into our story.
Yeah, let's just go into the storytelling.
All right.
So what I really love is visual storytelling. All the moments, there's no dialogue. It's all show don't tell. Like the opening sequence.
This is some John Wick shit.
Yeah, when
very few words.
Baby Conan is chained to the wheel of pain. And we watch, and he pushes it, and he pushes the wheel around, and his legs get bigger, and we see it. And the next time we see his face, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger with like mid-back length hair and just rippling muscles pushing that wheel around. And all the other kids have died. Like basically, he's the only one that has survived.
I was watching the making of this, the documentary, and it's so funny. I think it was a set designer or whatever he was talking about. It's like, what is the Wheel of Pain? Like,
what's
is
it
it
for?
Just like a thing to be mean. So I tried to make it sort of seem like it was grinding wheat or something.
Yeah.
And then Darwinism takes place and only one kid is alive. And when there's only one, that one is the strongest, and they go and become a gladiator.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that makes sense, sort of.
Yeah,
weird.
it's an inefficient system, but it's also good. It's good visual storytelling.
Oh, yeah. Like, just every time he walks around the circle, he's different.
Yeah. I have not watched any other John Milius movies. Like, I've never seen Red Dawn, and I know people...
That's good.
People love that movie. I've never seen it. So I'm very curious about the other Milius movies, because I think he's a strong filmmaker.
Yeah, I think that this particular movie had some really great tropes that he was playing into. Like we have kind of a hero's journey, but it's almost like an anti-hero's journey.
Yeah.
Because he's taken from nothing, and he rises up, and he has his ups and he has his down, and I just think that the character development of Conan is pretty good, because you see a lot of different facets, and I got to give a hand to Schwarzenegger, who was sometimes panned for his acting.
Yeah.
But like when he first is thrown into the gladiator pit and he's getting beat up, he looks like
shocked,
scared and shocked and all of this, and then by the end of it, he's just the most grim bastard of all time. And then in the middle, there's the party scenes where he's yucking it up and getting drunk. It's like, Schwarzenegger is great in this, and it shows the character, who he is, without a ton of words. It's just a lot of acting. It's really good.
It's crazy when you look at his IMDb. This is essentially his first starring role. He's been in a couple kind of low budget movies and like TV appearances and stuff before this, but this is his first real movie where he's the star of the movie.
Yeah, and they pitched it to him. They were basically like, well, once we had Schwarzenegger, we knew we had a movie.
Yeah, because so the producer, I think it's David Silver, he saw Schwarzenegger in Pumping Iron, and he's like, well, this guy should be in movies. What can we put him in? And his partner is like, oh, he looks like Conan. And he's like, I don't know what that is. He's like, here, read all of these books. And you're like, yes, actually, he's the perfect Conan. Let's buy the rights to that movie and make it. And it was made as a vehicle for him. And it started his career. Like it made him a movie star.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think that without getting into the performances section too much, I mean, if we're still talking about storytelling, I think that one of the other things that makes this this movie really interesting is Thulsa Doom. Yeah. Because he's complex and he's charismatic, and he's nothing like Conan. Yeah. He talks about, real power is, like having someone jump off a ledge to you and kill themselves. That's real power. Using a sword that isn't real power. It means your power ends at the end of your reach. But if you have true power over people, then you are actually powerful. Yeah. And I like how this cult leader character could be a nemesis to like an unstoppable warrior. Yeah, that's a good story.
It is. It's
because there's no contest when they fight.
Right. Well, I mean, yeah, there is no. there is none. Thulsa Doom is a very imposing figure.
He's not good at fighting.
Yeah, we never see him fight. He just has other people fight for him. Yeah, he does. But he does
his thing.
Some snake magic and stuff.
Hell yeah, he's like a druid. He shape changes.
Yeah, totally. So Oliver Stone wrote the original screenplay to this, and he envisioned it as the first of 12 films, which is just absolutely bonkers. Like no one.
So Oliver Stone wanted 12, but the director wanted 3.
Yeah,
That's realistic.
That's much more realistic, and they got pretty close to that.
The 12, Oliver Stone said in the interview that he wanted this to be like a Barbarian version of James Bond.
Yeah, and
just a serial.
And that makes sense because Conan has a career that spans, like a whole lifetime.
I would be so into it if they did that now. Just do a reboot and make a really good one.
I've over the last couple of weeks, I've come up with my pitch for how I would handle Conan. Oh. And that would be as a streaming show, probably for Peacock because that's Universal and they did these movies.
But Netflix has Schwarzenegger.
Has Schwarzenegger, yeah. But anyways, I would do it as an anthology series with Robert E. Howard writing the stories of Conan as he envisions them as the framing sequence. And I would tell stories from all over Conan's life with completely different casts in each story.
Different Conan.
So we can have Schwarzenegger's King Conan story. You can bring back Momoa and do Pirate Conan stories, and you can cast a new young Conan
because these are like legends.
Exactly, and you don't have to tell them in order, and it doesn't matter if. Someone could do one or someone could do three, and you could get all these directors who have wanted to take a whack at Conan and never got to do it, like Oliver Stone, and let him do an episode or 3 episodes.
Imagine a Tarantino Conan.
Yeah.
That'd be dope.
And that's actually, because he's about to do his 10th and final film, I think he'll do a lot more TV stuff after he's done with movies.
You really think he'll stay done?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I think he's done directing feature films.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't know? You don't believe him?
I don't believe him. He's got a thing that he's into. He's into films.
Yeah, but he's also into writing.
He's also into money.
Everybody's into money. Do you have any more in the storytelling?
I was just going to say that there's a couple things devices that really work well for me here. Mm-hmm. First of all, the rich, detailed world is it pulls on mythology from all different worlds. He references Valhalla. He talks about all these different things, and I love that mishmash nonsense. It's so Dungeons and Dragons, but really it's so Conan. D&D takes it from Howard.
Yeah, and you know who else takes a lot from Howard is George R.R. Martin.
Oh yeah.
So
Howard Martin loves Howard.
Like it's like Westeros is Tolkien and Essos is Howard.
Yeah. And, it's so good.
And
where's Samaria in Essos?
I mean, it wouldn't. Samaria would be like. It would actually be Westeros, because
he's a he's a white guy.
Yeah, but it's still attached.
Yeah,
it's like it hasn't broken off yet, because it's essentially like I was looking at the map, and Samaria is more or less the British Isles.
It'd be pretty dope to play Conan role playing game.
There is one, isn't there, or is it's GURPS based or something?
Assume. Who cares? Yeah. Systems don't matter.
Yeah. Anyways, kind of piggybacking off of what you were talking about, the way it combines these tropes. Milius also combines tropes because he takes the aesthetics of the sword and sandal epics from like the golden age of Hollywood, like Ben-Hur and stuff like that, and he combines it with spaghetti westerns and Japanese samurai and horror films, and sort of like he mashes these all together into a genre with each other. One of the critics at the time called it Star Wars designed by a psychopath. I just thought but that's not entirely inaccurate, and still kind of good.
You might also say that Star Wars made palatable Howard's style because it predates it. And I was going to say the last storytelling thing that I really like was I love the quotable lines. There's like a million of them, and they're all so good. Mm-hmm. The whole "what is best in life," and then the riddle of steel.
Yeah.
If I don't know it, he will cast me out of Valhalla and laugh at me.
Yeah.
I like all of these lines. Like Subutai lines. When I was a kid, I used to just say those all the time.
Mm-hmm. I am Subutai. Thief, an archer, a Harkanian.
I always wanted to play characters just like Subutai in games. I never played Conan. I always played Subutai.
The thief?
Yeah.
Man, that's a good road dog to have.
Oh, yeah.
You get yourself crucified, he finds you and gets you down. Yeah.
Yeah. Subutai is a bro.
Subutai and Valeria are good wing folks, good wing people.
Think that party, like with those guys and the wizard, like that's a damn good 4-man party right there.
Yeah. So what is Subutai is a ranger?
Yeah, or a scout rogue. That's a type in 5th edition, but yeah, same idea.
Conan's a barbarian. What's Valeria? What's her class?
I think she's
just fighter.
I think she's a fighter or a thief or a fighter thief.
I guess she's a thief. Yeah, because like she's actually the more experienced thief.
Yeah, but she's good at sword fighting too. But I guess rogues are good at sword fighting.
Conan is so multi-classed, it's absurd. Like if you read the books, he is a barbarian ranger fighter.
Yeah, but not really. It depends on the edition. But in 5th edition, a lot of that stuff is just skills. Like he has survival and he has stealth.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a thief and a ranger now. But barbarians have access to both of those skills. And I was thinking, like, what is the wizard? He's not a wizard. He's like a warlock or something. Like,
well, warlock has a patron, right?
Maybe even a cleric, because he like raises the dead, or he talks to spirits.
He talks to spirits. Yeah, cleric is because he keeps that shrine, right?
Yeah.
So maybe he's not. Yeah, they don't fit exactly into D&D tropes.
It's totally
or whatever.
fine. You can play that same party and be really cool. All right, so as far as visuals, what do you got?
First up, Ron Cobb's production design and John Bloomfield's costume design. The movie looks like a Frank Frazetta painting.
Yeah.
Like there's certain moments, like Tulsa Doom sitting on his throne, and he's got the princess sort of clutching his leg, and it's like just that iconic Conan Frazetta style.
Well, and Frazetta was a big influence on them and their style, and they intentionally evoke those images.
Yeah, and they just do such a good job. And then it also there's the architecture of the world. It's very reminds me of, like I said earlier, the biblical epics from the golden age of Hollywood.
It's like when they walk into that city, like Conan and Subutai walk into that city, it's like, are they in Jerusalem?
They're in Spain somewhere.
Yeah, I know, but just it sort of evokes that kind of hot Middle Eastern adobe style. I mean, it definitely could be Iberian.
Yeah,
you know, that whole vibe. Yeah, it does have that biblical style.
It's interesting because they were going to film in Yugoslavia originally, and the political situation there got hot.
Oh, yeah.
And so they were like, well, let's relocate to Spain. And then there was a coup d'etat against Franco when they got to Spain. So it's like the political situation's hot in a lot of places.
I think in the 80s, you don't want to be in any Warsaw Pact country.
Yeah.
That's just not, it's not the place.
Yeah, it's not good. What else you got?
So I think I say this every damn movie. I guess I pay attention to it a lot, but I love the use of lighting.
Yeah,
it's dynamic. Like whereas when Dragon Slayer was like dark.
Yeah.
This has moments of extreme darkness.
Yeah.
And moments of extreme light.
Yeah.
And I love the contrast. I like how, like for example, when they're in the opening, it's kind of bathed in this golden warm light, and then later, like in the scenes where Conan is lying dead and Valeria is fighting the spirits, it's so dark, but you can kind of see what's going on. If it's like you want to squint, but you know it doesn't help because that's how it's filmed. I really feel like they capture the danger inherent in darkness, and they also use light to evoke grandeur, like on the steps of the temple.
Yeah.
They don't say it explicitly in the movie, but in the interviews they call it the Temple of Set.
Right.
So I think that amount of dynamic, intentional lighting choice makes this feel like many movies. Like it kind of like Empire, you know? It's like you have multiple movies in this movie, and I enjoy all of those movies.
Yeah, so Duke Callahan is the cinematographer, and...
so if your name was Duke Callahan, would you not change it to Duke Caladan?
I mean, it's right there. It is right there. Yeah. And I really like his his outdoor cinematography, like where he just shoots like the rocky landscape of southern Spain, and it reminds
when Conan is running.
Like out there, and it just looks so desolate, and you said like it's very bright, and the sun, you feel the sun, how punishing that sun is.
And then he falls into the dark crypt.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Into the Atlantean tomb where he gets his sword. Yeah. And then it's a horror movie, or like he does have a.
Northman really borrowed some of that.
Yes. Northman borrows a lot from this movie. Basically, as much as it borrows from Hamlet, it borrows from Conan.
Yeah. Some good influences.
Yeah. And that's. Eggers has said that in interviews. When he was on, I think he was on Mark Maron's podcast, and he said Conan the Barbarian was a huge influence. And I thought that from the first trailer. I was like, this is the plot of Conan.
Yeah, this is a new Conan.
Yeah. It's
fucking good.
That's a good Conan. That's a better, Skarsgård's a better Conan than Momoa is.
Yeah, for sure.
But
not better than Arnold.
No, I don't think so. The other visual element, Ron Cobb designed it, but Jody Sampson is their swordsmith that forged the Sumerian sword and the Atlantean sword, and probably all the other weapons. And these are some of my favorite fantasy swords of all time.
I've always wanted a replica of that Conan sword, the Atlantean.
Atlantean sword,
yeah,
not Conan's father's sword with the stag skull on it.
That is really cool too. I mean, I could have both.
It'd be really good to have those over the fireplace. That would look awesome. Like these are
That's a thing I don't have enough of in my house is swords.
It's fantasy sword, replicas.
I don't own any fantasy replica swords. I only own one sword.
Okay. Well, yeah, your
my
actual
sword.
Yeah. So other than the Conan swords, what other fantasy swords would you want?
Oh, probably Glamdring and Narsil.
Ooh, Glamdring, the faux hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I think that, like Conan's sword, I would want to have a He-Man sword.
Ooh, which He-Man sword? The movie one or the cartoon?
Cartoon.
Oh, okay.
And if we're going cartoons, I might even think of Lion-O's sword.
Ooh, the Sword of Omens.
Yeah.
Short or like the full length?
Full length.
Yeah.
Full length.
But if you have the short, you can wear it in your lion claw gauntlet.
That would be dope if you could get one of those.
All right. So let's stop this podcast and start collecting fantasy swords.
Okay. Or let's do a fantasy sword podcast.
We could at least do a top 10 of the fantasy swords.
That'd be a fun question for like a rapid fire.
Which fantasy sword? Yeah, you didn't get any of the Game of Thrones.
I mean, those are the thing about the Game of Thrones swords is that they're very kind of realistic-ish. Uh-huh. The ones you see in the show. I mean, if you're looking at House of the Dragon, I would rather have Dark Sister than Blackfire. Like if I'm wielding the sword, give me Dark Sister.
Yeah,
I like to fight fast, not heavy.
I like Jon's sword. What's it? Longclaw?
Longclaw, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good sword.
That is a good sword.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move on from swords. Are we on to audio?
I got a couple more.
Okay, go for it.
As production design stuff, I love how the fantasy armor and costuming changes through time and place.
Conan has a lot of different costumes in this movie.
And so do the people around him, and all of the different people look cool all the time.
Yeah.
None of it is like super intentionally aping one culture, armory wise, like even when Subutai is kind of wearing the Mongol stuff, he also has some distinctly non-Mongol armor, and some Japanese style stuff, and he has some Western style. I just think that they did a really good job of making these costumes cool and intentionally fantastic. One thing I don't like in fantasy movies or shows or books or whatever, when it's like, okay, this nation is just fantasy India, or this is just fantasy South America. It's like, oh, come on. Give me something cooler than that. Like, I'm okay with cultural references because those are like touchstones and tropes that you really like. But like, I like it when they put more thought into that. I thought that the costuming was extremely good. They did a good job of making this pulpy. With, there's a lot of skin on the men and the women in this thing. There's a lot of that, but I feel like it was tastefully done and mostly, and it was good.
Because the Hyborian Age, they shouldn't be exactly like their modern counterpart, or not modern, but medieval counterparts, right? So like the Harkanians, like Subutai, they're not the Mongols. They are sort of the ancestors to the Mongols and the Turks and the Huns and like half a dozen cultures. So it's like you should see shades of the future in them, but they don't just wear Mongol armor or whatever it is. Yeah.
And I think the last thing I have is I feel like the sets that they used were all super well designed. Like, I loved the temple sets, the inside and out.
Oh, yeah.
I think that how they were covered in hieroglyphics and carvings everywhere. I liked... It just felt like every place that Conan was visually stunning.
Yeah. And so that's kind of back to Ron Cobb again as the production designer. And he talked about how every culture has its own architecture, and it is not directly an analog to an existing architecture in our world. It's its own thing.
Yeah.
And I think it was very well executed that way.
They did a great job. So what about audio? I mean, it's not very notable, so let's just move on. No.
What are you talking?
It's one of the greatest soundtracks.
It is probably my favorite film score. Like this, you said last episode or the one before about how I always talk about the scores to the movies.
Yeah.
This was the first movie that I was obsessed with the score to. And Basil Pordoris' score is
not Star Wars. It wasn't a Star Wars score that was your first.
I mean, truthfully, probably all of John Williams' music, but I didn't really think of it like that.
Yeah, and
like I didn't think
recognized as music
because I was a little kid, and I just sort of like would kind of hum those songs, but like I was like, who made this music? Who is Basil Pordoris? Like, I need to have this album. Like, this was the first film score that I really was like into.
Yeah,
but I mean, yes, obviously. Star Wars, Indiana Jones, all of John Williams' music was in my subconscious.
But basically, I'm with you. This movie, when I first saw it, the sound really stuck out to me. Yeah. And then whenever I think Conan the Barbarian, I think of this music.
You hear those drums, dum 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 dum.
It's
dum,
just
dum,
so
dum.
good.
Yeah,
and I like how it changes so much. There's contrast. There's like the temple scenes when they're spying on the set cultists, and it's all like kind of like playful music.
Yeah, because they're having an orgy.
Yeah. And then there's all these like the horns and the gongs, and it's just so heavy.
Yeah. And so this was very influential on symphonic black metal, dungeon synth, I don't want to big up Varg, so Mortis is very influenced by this. Assuredly, everyone in Dimmu Borgir has listened to this quite a bit.
I saw Mortis in Oslo, and his intro music while he was before he came onto the stage was this score.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this, for the world of black metal, like the more atmospheric black metal, this is one of the legs of the stool. Yeah. Is this score?
It's melodic and extremely dark, and that's what you need in black metal.
Yeah. And don't sleep on the score to Conan the Destroyer. That one's good too. Pretty good. Poldoris also, he revisits this score quite a bit, but he brings in, there's some new songs as well. I kind
of feel like I need to watch that movie. I haven't seen it in a long time.
It's not good, but it's still fun, right? Like it's not nearly as good as this one, but there's still, it has its moments. And Grace Jones is awesome in it, and so it's
the other Schwarzenegger Conan movie is pretty good. Red Sonja.
He doesn't play Conan in Red Sonja.
I know, but he's supposed to be.
He's like Lord Caldor or something like that. But
he's Conan. It's just a licensing issue.
It's because weirdly, even though they're both Howard characters, the licenses are separate, and so they couldn't get both.
Yeah.
So it was like, you can have Conan, but not, or Red Sonja, but not Conan. And it's like, wow, this is supposed to be the third movie in our trilogy.
Yeah.
So, anyways, that's worth watching, but it's also a terrible movie. It's just fun.
Yeah, it's fun.
It's
like,
fun.
Yeah, there's a lot of movies like that, like Lady Hawk.
I don't think Lady Hawk was very close to making the cut for
was
this.
It?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's pretty
good.
That's
too.
pretty well regarded.
I like all of those movies.
Yeah.
I could watch every single
80s fantasy. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. The sound design outside of the score, I really like. It has a lot of martial arts movie sounds in it. Like, it reminds me of it, like I said earlier, like a samurai movie, but also sort of like kung fu movies and spaghetti western. It has these sort of like exaggerated sound effects sometimes. And it gives it more like that sort of comic booky punch that's appropriate for this kind of story.
Yeah, for sure. I feel like the sound design was not overdone. Mm-hmm. It was just right.
Yeah, but it's very stylized. It's not realistic.
Yeah,
but it's
not overdone like Excalibur.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. That is just a little bit further.
Yeah, where the guy like rides by and hits someone in the head with a battle axe, and it goes pong.
That's that aluminum armor they're wearing. That's the sound it makes.
So bad. All right, so what do you have for themes and motifs?
So the first theme is natural selection.
Okay.
There's this real sort of Nietzschean philosophy to Conan. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And we were talking about that earlier. The wheel of pain is just to naturally select the children for who becomes a gladiator or whatever.
Yeah.
So Conan is the product of natural selection. He's this sort of apex man or whatever. So that's one of the themes.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. I was just going to say that one of the motifs that they use in here a lot is real world folklore and mythology. Things like we have Norse saga stuff, we have Arthurian legend, Greek myths, and basically it seems like there is a deep and rich mythology of this world that's kind of built on assumptions and ideas from real world mythology, and it makes it have a feeling of authenticity because parts of it ring true. It's not 100% made up from whole cloth, and so I really like that mythology and folklore motif.
Yeah. So Howard was before he created Conan, he was very into writing historical fiction.
Okay.
And the life of a pulp writer is very hand to mouth, and you get paid when your story gets published. And so the amount of research it was taking him to write historical fiction would he's not getting paid while he's getting his facts right to write this story about ancient Celts or whatever. And so he invented the Hyborian Age so that he could make his own mythology that is the inspiration for the stuff that came later.
Yeah.
And then he doesn't have to do the research, but it always will feel familiar to the reader. So like when you look at the cult of Set and the Stygians or whatever, and you can see like their sort of Egyptian
another snake cult.
Yeah, and like it all feels familiar to you, but without the time-consuming research he had to do to write real historical fiction.
Yeah.
He made his own history.
And that really makes the mythology of this movie ring true. And that's another thing that George Martin has lifted from this, in that he uses real world history and real world mythology to make his stuff feel a little more authentic.
Yeah. So my next theme is barbarism versus civilization. And this is the prevalent theme.
Is Thulsa Doom really civilization?
Thulsa
It's a
Doom
cannibal cult.
He's ancient civilization, right? Because he's supposed to be from the pre-cataclysm, like he's from the time of Atlantis. So basically, Howard has this concept that we're constantly in cycles between barbarism and civilization, and the barbarians become civilized and the society rises up and then eventually decays and is torn down by barbarians again.
Like wasn't the king, he was a Sumerian,
or he was a mighty Northman, like my lord. So it's like, so there's this cyclical thing that happens of societies rise up and the barbarians tear them down. And Conan,
like the Dothraki,
is totally that barbarian trope. Yeah. I mean, it's essentially true. Like that is sort of the cycle that happens. Wait a minute,
Momoa played a Dothraki, and
you know what's weird? Okay. So, when they made his Conan movie, Game of Thrones had not come out yet.
Oh,
so it's like he played Khal Drogo, then played Conan, then Game of Thrones came out, and then the Conan movie came out.
And then he played more Khal Drogo in more seasons. Or is he
he's only in season 1. He dies, remember?
I wasn't sure if he died in the first season, or they really do some fuzzy time in the show compared to the books. For
sure. What's your next piece?
I would just say that symbolism is huge in this. That the sword is given to Conan and it's a symbol of his power and strength, and then that's taken away.
Right.
The idea of the sword was his power and it's gone, and he doesn't have it again until he gets another sword. And then the idea of the wheel of pain is enslavement and suffering, and he wears the necklace that has a wheel on it the whole time
until he gets the heart of the serpent, and then he takes the wheel off.
So it's like these are symbols, and they're meaningful, and it's character progression.
I mean, and so he gets his father's sword back at the end, and that's what he uses to behead Thulsa Doom with, because Thulsa Doom beheaded his mother with that sword. So when he cuts his head off, and then he casts that down, he keeps the Atlantean sword. He doesn't keep. I guess that's sort of like the thing, like James Earl Jones says. That's him. His vengeance arc is concluded when he casts down his father's sword. And then he moves on, like beyond his quest for vengeance.
He becomes a hero.
Yeah.
Do you have any more themes? I've
got the Riddle of Steel as a theme, which Thulsa Doom has his take on it. The flesh isn't strong, or no. Steel isn't strong. Flesh is stronger. What is steel compared to the hand that wields it? So that's his take on it. And then the 2011 Conan movie, the Ron Perlman version of Conan's father, has the opposite take, that you need to be like steel, because steel is forged and tempered by fire and ice. And so being like steel, to be strong is to be balanced and to be flexible but hard at the same time. So it's like you have these two ideas about what is the riddle of steel. Like it's not definitively answered.
Yeah, that's another one of those things where they throw it out there but they don't answer it. But that's better.
Yeah,
it's better that it remains an unanswered question.
Yeah. And then we've talked about vengeance already, and we've talked about snakes, which are my other motifs. So yeah, they've covered all mine.
So we got the performances. My first bullet point here has to be for James Earl Jones as Thulsa Doom.
Yeah,
I think he's probably the best performance in the movie.
Yeah,
he's this powerful, evil sorcerer. He's menacing. He's charismatic. He brings like a tranquility to the role.
Yeah.
And from the very first scene where he walks up and beheads Conan's mother, he's extremely scary.
I mean, it's because he's a big man, and then he's got the the long sort of wig with bangs and the blue and the creepy blue eyes.
Yeah.
And he's got 2 swords like worn on his belt in the front, and he's a very intimidating presence, and he's very calm all the time. He never gets riled, and that's much more intimidating than someone that kind of rants and raves and Skeletor's around. He's a steady presence.
Yeah,
he has confidence.
Kind of like in the book, the Expanse. There's James, the captain. He says, "Cold Amos is a lot more scary than angry Amos."
Mm-hmm. And so Thulsa Doom, just to talk about the character, because he's a character from the lore, but he's not from the time of Conan. He's from the Atlantean
age.
He
says he's like 1,000 years old or something like that.
And he's a full-on Skeletor. He's a skull-faced wizard.
Okay. In the books?
In the books, yeah. So this Thulsa Doom is sort of like an amalgam of sort of every evil wizard from across Conan. Because like there's a certain wizard that does the thing with making a snake into an arrow. That comes from one of the stories, and Thulsa Doom is a lot of characters put together. But it's cool. Like, he's greater than the sum of his parts. This Thulsa Doom, I think, is better than any of the wizards he's made out of.
Yeah, and I think that's because James Earl Jones elevates it.
Yeah, he does. He takes it seriously. And I know you watched the same interviews as me, and he was talking about how a lot of people like to have fun playing villains, like the sort of scenery chewing kind of villains.
Yeah.
And he thinks that it robs it of all their credibility. And so he's like, having a gentle person deliver that dialogue is much more it's much scarier.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like a person who fundamentally believes in what they're doing is a lot scarier than a person who just thinks they're being provocative or evil.
Right.
And it just so happens if what they believe in that they're doing is fundamentally evil, that's even scarier.
Yeah, totally. I guess next up is Arnold, right?
Yeah, Arnold has to be next because he's the star, obviously. And this performance, even though he doesn't say a ton of words in the performance, is really good.
Mm-hmm. It's really good, and he transformed his body to play the role, like because he slimmed down and kind of like resculpted his muscles to be more of a athletic because he wanted to have that freedom of movement.
He wasn't doing powerlifting. He was doing mobility stuff. Yeah,
because that bodybuilding stuff is not good for doing like sword katas and things like that. And the amount of training he did. So he had Sensei Yamazaki do his sword training, and then that carries for him, for Jerry Lopez and Sandal Bergman. They all did months of sword training and months of horseback riding training, and it shows. Like, they do incredible stunt work in this, and for the most part Arnold stunts himself because they didn't have anyone of his body size. So like when they're riding away from the temple and Valeria gets shot with an arrow, Arnold reaches over, one arms her off of her horse and brings her over onto his horse, and it's like, it must be nice to be strong. Like, that is incredible. And to keep riding your horse straight while you do that, like, that's some serious stunt work.
Yeah, and that's a lot of trust from the actress to
she might have been a stunty for that scene, but still, like, that's no small thing to grab a full-size lady off a horse.
Well, and when he beheaded Thulsa Doom, he actually swung the sword, and it was actually James Earl Jones there wearing a brace on his neck. So Arnold was striking it pretty hard.
Yeah,
because he was armored.
Yeah, you can tell these people, they got real comfortable with each other several months out in Spain. They really were pretty close knit. Arnold talks a lot about his time in Spain while they made this movie. Like, it's a very formative time for him.
Yeah, he's a young dude. He was having the time of his life.
Yeah, becoming a movie star, like living his dreams. Yeah.
So I think my next one is Sandal Bergman.
Yeah.
As Valeria. I think that this character was really good. I would have loved to see a little more development of her. A little. I kind of feel like she was fridged almost, but it wasn't terrible because she had already rescued him from death. She fought the spirits away. She was, the lead thief in the invasion of the monastery, temple, whatever. And I just feel like she did a really good job in the role. And then of course she appears again as like a Valkyrie.
Yeah. That's epic. So yeah, Sandal Bergman, she comes from a dancing background. That's where Milius saw her and all that jazz and was like, she looks like a Valkyrie incarnate. Like, and he's like, who is this woman? We need to get her in the movie. And most of her dialogue comes from the books. Valeria is not a character in the books, but Belette, the pirate queen, who is sort of like the love of Conan's life, has all of Valeria's dialogue comes directly from Belette. Including the thing about if I was dead and you were still living, I'd come back from the abyss to save you. Yeah. Like that's a line that Belette said to Conan. And yeah, I think she does. This is not a fridging because she has her own arc. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't exist just to service him. It's close to a fridging though. She does die, so he has motivation to feel something.
He had motivation already, and this just
his mother got fridged. That was a full on fridging. Yeah, Valeria got an arc, but Mama Conan got fridged.
Yeah, I think that Sandal Bergman was really good in this movie. And it was awesome. And then the last two I have are both much smaller parts.
Okay.
I have Jerry Lopez as Subutai.
Yeah.
I love the performance. I like how they were trying to cast someone who was like Lopez, and then they were originally just cast Lopez.
Yeah, because he's not a professional actor. He was a surfer and a homie of Milius's. He was their Conan expert, though. He was the guy that had read all the books and had thoughts on the characters and everything.
He's a true nerd.
Yeah, and so I think for a non-professional actor who just got dropped into this,
he's just kind of like, be like you.
And they sent him to acting school. Like, all right, learn how to act. And it's like, oh, okay, I guess I'll do that. He comports himself very, very well. I think he does a good job. I've always loved that character, and I was shocked that he was like a Chicano surfer bro and not actually Mongol.
Asian. Yeah. Yeah, I was like, wow, this in a modern day he never would have got that role because they would have given it to an Asian person.
Yeah,
which is right.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Subutai is not Asian. He's a fantasy race.
Yeah, he's Harkanian.
Yeah, so it's not a big deal. Yeah. And I think same thing with Mako. Mako is a minor part, but he's an important part. And I think the wizard. Yeah. It's a really cool performance. I like how he lends gravity, a bit of quirkiness, a bit of weirdness. He's cantankerous.
Yeah.
All wizards are cantankerous. That's a trope. You have to be difficult if you're a wizard.
Yeah, he's like, I'm a wizard, mind you. This place is protected by powerful gods. And Conan's like, can you summon demons, wizard? And just like, they just immediately like each other. Yeah. Like there's this sort of thing. Like, and Conan usually doesn't like wizards, so that's he has good vibes. Yeah, Mako or Makoto Iwamatsu. He's just this great character actor. Probably the millennial divers that grew up on Avatar: The Last Airbender. He's the voice of Uncle Iroh. I just always love Mako. If Mako shows up in something, regardless of the quality of the project, he's going to be delightful.
And he usually is funny.
Yeah,
that's kind of a thing he does.
He's a good crazy uncle. Like that's his role, and he just does it great. And on that same tip, the legendary character actors. Max von Sydow as King Osric.
Yeah, that's true. It was kind of crazy that they got Max von Sydow to do a bit part.
Yeah.
But I like how he said that he liked to do it because it was an emotional role.
Yeah.
He was normally typecast to be stoic.
Yeah.
And he enjoyed playing a character that was extremely emotional.
Yeah. And King Osric is great in his little moment. It's too bad they cut his death scene because it's good. It is
good. He gets betrayed.
Yeah, it's just over bloody, but so it didn't.
Yeah, they got rated X like 3 times or something before they could get a rated R. In the modern day, no.
Yeah, it's not that much blood.
Our
standards have changed completely.
There's no graphic nudity here, so
there's a little nudity.
But I mean, to get an X in the modern day.
Yeah. X doesn't even exist.
Yeah, NC-17, whatever. To get that in the modern day, you have to go pretty far.
That's true. It's true.
This would be R, but it would be on a soft R.
Yeah, I think so. And then the last person or persons that I wanted to call out for
the Danish bodybuilders.
Yes, Ben Davidson and Sven Ole Thorsen as Rexor and Thorgrim, and then the collective, the Great Danes, all the other big guys that play extra barbarians. Ben Davidson was an NFL player. Sven Ole Thorsen was a Danish bodybuilder. They don't really have any dialogue at all.
No.
They are just guys who are bigger than Arnold because you need to have people for him to fight that are a challenge. Yeah,
Thorgrim is really convincing in his fighting. I think that guy took it pretty seriously.
That hammer's
it's huge.
Monstrous. Yeah. It's like when he swings that hammer and takes a big chunk out of the Roman pillar or whatever or column.
Yeah.
It's like, man, you would not want to catch that to the face. It's a wrap.
Yeah, I've done fighting stuff with guys who use big weapons or are very, very strong, and it's a whole different thing. Like, you don't want to block them.
Yeah.
You need to move.
You just get out of the way.
It just hurts, even if you block.
Yeah. It's like, oh, it's just a big mallet. Yeah, well, I mean, it's a hammer the size of your whole rib cage. So it's going to leave a welt that's half your body.
Yeah, you need to dip in, dip out. Don't get hit by that. And that's what Arnold did. And I thought it was pretty rad.
Yeah, so I just think those guys do a really great job, even though they don't have any dialogue.
They have good death scenes. Like, I love the booby trap where he smashes the helmet.
Yeah, and he gets the spike in the chest.
Impaled, so good.
And Conan comes up and kind of looks at him like he's a chump.
Yeah. It's like, you got wrecked by a trap.
Yep, that's, I have got some other people like German actress Nadiuska that plays Conan's mother. She has no dialogue and she gets fridged, but
the princess lady is pretty good. I didn't get her name. I like that character. I thought they could have done more with that.
It's Valerie Quinnison is her name. But
you only have two. I mean, this was already 2 hours. So.
Yeah. Franco Colombo, Arnold Schwarzenegger's best friend. He's an Italian bodybuilder. He's a Pictish scout. You just see him real briefly.
Okay,
run through. Arnold always tried to, especially in the early days, get Franco roles in the stuff he was working on because that was his homie.
Nice. Yeah, I would do that if I was getting big money.
And he looks cool, like as this Pictish warrior running through the woods. Like that's something a bodybuilder can handle without. You don't need to be a great actor. Just look like a muscly dude running through the woods.
The function of bodybuilding is looking cool.
Yeah. So I guess we're personal highlights.
All right, so my personal highlight is a tough one, but I'm gonna go ahead and say I think that the final battle with Dulce Doom, the one at the Standing Stones, where they come in with the cavalry, and we have the Great Danes there, and we have all of the we just have Subutai and Conan for the most part, and every now and then the wizard he stabs one guy. I stabbed him with my knife. He's so amazed.
Or was it spear? It's my spear.
Yeah, I love all the Subutai kills. I love how Conan outfoxes everyone.
Yeah,
I like the thought put into the set itself with the punji stakes everywhere and all of the booby traps, and it's just a really good battle scene. There are so many good battle scenes and fight scenes. Like I almost chose the second burglary scene where they're wearing the body paint and that whole deal.
Yeah.
Because those are iconic as well. There's just a million moments in this movie that I just really enjoyed. So I just chose that one.
I really liked that one at the Stonehenge too. And you get Arnold's monologue at the beginning. You know, he's like, "Crom, I do not pray to you often. I have no tongue for it." Like, it's some of his best dialogue in the movie. And he wears the iconic Conan helmet that gets described in the book so often with his bull horns. He's the most Conan looking in those scenes. Yeah. And two stood against many, and you know, he got his revenge. So yeah, that's iconic. For me, I chose the other one, which is when they steal into the Temple of Set to steal the princess out.
Yeah, that's such a good
and they're
scene.
wearing their war paint, and they come in through the caves in the back, and they go through the human abattoir where they're chopping up bodies to put in the soup.
Oh, I love that part.
And
That's such a big reveal. When I was young, I was like, "What, cannibals?"
Yeah, and then they come up into the orgy chamber, and Arnold does this great face when he comes in the room and sees just like the masses of human bodies out there, and his eyes like bulge out of his head like. Downstairs, they're chopping up people and making soup while these people are just up here boning away on the floor. Yeah, and then they steal the princess, and it's just it's like a perfectly executed like D&D encounter.
Yes,
you know what I mean. Like they make all their stealth rolls, everything right up till the end when Thulsa Doom gets his snake arrow in Valeria and poisons her.
Yes.
So good. Because you can't get through the encounter without taking any hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, yeah, I love it. That whole segment is great. And Thulsa Doom turns into a snake.
Yeah, that's really cool.
When I saw this movie, however old I was, which was way too young for watching a movie like this, that was the scariest shit ever, watching him turn into that snake and slither away. So creepy. And yeah, I just love that whole thing.
No, yeah, that's a really cool scene. That's one of my favorites. So I guess the other thing the things that work for me is I really like the practical effects. I liked all the giant snake stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it played really well. It didn't look lame. It didn't. It aged super well.
Yeah.
All the stunts and the sword fighting and stuff that they did. I really like how real this movie feels.
Yeah, they do a really good job of transitioning the animatronic snake to a real snake on a model.
Yes,
and because when you can cut back and forth like that, the real snake carries through and gives you the sense that it's moving around the set. Yeah, excellently done.
Yeah, those practical effects were super big. And so I think that aside from that and the really, really excellent performances, those are probably, for me, the standout things.
Okay. My number one was Paul Doris' score. Like I said, it's probably my favorite film score. The cast, in particular, Schwarzenegger and James Earl Jones, just... The Savage Hillman versus the Eloquent Sorcerer. So much quotable dialogue between the two of them. And then Ron Cobb's production design and John Bloomfield's costume design. They realized the Hyborian Age and the different regions and countries and cultures and made it seem like a real world, not just like generic fantasy.
Yeah, that's all good stuff.
So what didn't work for you?
I mean, as much as I like that this film had a lot of mini films in it, I feel like the pacing was uneven.
Yeah.
It started off really strong, and then it slows down for quite a bit until you get to the third act. It's just sort of like it reminded me of like the Fellowship of the Rings. It's kind of and then, and then, and then.
At least it's not a Tom Bombadil.
Oh yeah. it was just a lot of this, and then we meet this person, and then we meet this person.
Yeah.
It wasn't a lot of plot development, and so we didn't actually get back to the plot until the third act. I would also say that some of the dialogue is a fair bit cheesy. Now, that's part of the tropes. That's part of the thing, and that's okay. Some of them are a little over the top, and they take away from the seriousness at times.
Okay.
I like it when this is a grimdark film.
Okay.
I think that there was underdevelopment when it came to the female characters. This was the 80s. That's to be expected. Valeria and Tamara. Basically, I just would like to see a little more. Make Valeria a little more of an equal partner in this adventuring group, because it kind of does seem like Subutai and Conan plus Conan's girlfriend at times. I mean, she does have her own mojo, but I mean,
I know what you mean.
If this was made in the 2020s, it would be different.
She'd have more to do. Yeah,
and then finally, violence is great. I like violence in movies as a tool, as a storytelling tool. I think sometimes it got a little bit over the top.
Oh, okay.
It might have gone from storytelling tool to gratuitousness with the amount of fake blood they used and stuff. People don't generally spray blood. That's not really a thing that happens that much.
Yeah.
And I know this is not a simulation. This is not realism. It just it made it feel a little schlocky.
Okay.
How about you? What didn't work for you?
I've got two things. And so the first one is actually, these are both very similar to things that you said. I actually don't think that Conan is well suited to feature films. I don't think, because the Howard stories, of all the stories that Howard wrote, only one of them is novel length. They're all short stories or novelettes. And I think Conan works better that way, where you get a Conan adventure. And so trying to give Conan a hero's journey from being a little kid that gets stolen away and made into a slave, and then have that guy rise up to be this sort of prehistoric hero. It's hard to make that fit, like to make that structure fit, make Conan fit into that structure. And so that's what you're talking about, that sort of uneven pacing, because you're having to...
They're grafting different stories together.
Yeah, you're grafting a bunch of adventures together and trying to make a narrative out of them, when they would probably be better served just as short stories.
Sure.
And then portrayal of women is not great. Valeria is the only woman in the story that has a character at all. The princess is literally like an object. She has
a few lines.
She's a MacGuffin that they're questing after. And then most other, there's a witch that's a werewolf and a ghost. At some point in cool. And most women in this movie don't get any character at all. And so, like you said, in 2023, you couldn't make a movie that treated women like this, and you shouldn't.
Yeah, it takes away from it.
So, final thoughts and rating.
I got to give it a solid 4.
Yeah,
I highly enjoyed the movie. I think it's really good. It's an unqualified recommend for anyone to watch. I think that even people who don't like fantasy could find something that they enjoy in this movie. I mean, obviously it's a movie from 40 years ago, but it's still really fun and it holds up. It's not perfect. It has a few things, so it can't be a 5-star.
Yeah.
But it's definitely well above the median.
I think so too. I think I'm also at a 4. I think this movie holds up really well. It's very well put together.
This is the best movie yet in this series.
Yeah.
Like, most entertaining.
Yeah. Everything else is has had part of it, right?
Yeah.
Like Excalibur really had the great symbolism and like visual storytelling, and Dragon Slayer had the great effects. It had the great effects. This has been the best synthesis of everything.
It has the best leading man and the best villain.
Yeah.
And the best supporting cast. It's just, this is the best.
We're going to have to do a wizard countdown when we get to the end, because all these movies have a wizard.
Oh,
and we'll rank the 5 wizards.
It sucks that this wizard doesn't have a name. We just call him Mako.
I guess he's just the wizard.
Yeah, he's just the wizard.
Mako.
That's what how he's
Mako
credited.
the wizard. The actor's name is the wizard's name.
Yeah.
He's wizard / narrator in the credits.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize it was
So you could call him narrator.
That's really interesting. All right, so let's go ahead and take a quick break and come back with our ending segment.
Welcome back, divers. It's time for our final segment, the one where I ask Dave, what are you into right now?
Well, I've been super busy with everything like I always am, but right now I've just been continuing on with the audiobooks I talked about last time.
Oh, The Expanse?
Yeah, but that's not what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about a streaming recommend. I do like to go back to that from time to time because 2 shows that I like have new seasons out, and I figured I should remind the divers, if they haven't checked them out, to check these out.
Okay.
Alone season 10 is out pretty good.
I had a feeling that's what it was going to be. Yeah.
So that's the first one, and this is the same as always. That's the best thing about Alone is there's no gimmicks, there's no weirdness. Sometimes, like once they increase the prize, there's usually like a little change. There is no change here. The only difference is some of the survivalists are somewhat interesting people. There's some older people. There's a few people that are like over 50. There's a person who's 60. They have a ton of knowledge and experience, but they have the factors of age working against them. So it's a different deal. There's a Native American guy in there who's got a lot of really great bushcraft skills and a lot of different ideas. Overall, I love this show, and I will always watch a new season of it.
Is Alone on Hulu? Is that... I forget what streamer it's on.
I can't even remember. I buy the seasons.
You buy the seasons
completely on. I usually buy them on YouTube.
Okay.
And then the other one is another survival show because I want to stay on topic. It's Naked and Afraid. This one is a gimmick though. It's not regular Naked and Afraid. This is called Last One Standing.
I mean, isn't Naked and Afraid a gimmick to start with?
Well, the thing is it kind of started as a gimmick show, and then it's kind of evolved with the XL challenges and all these things into sort of a legit survival show, because they keep bringing back recurring expert survivalists to be, do these competitions. This is the first one that's a straight up competition. They bring back all these people, I think 12 or something like that, or maybe 10, I don't know. And they're going to go until people quit or are eliminated through different challenges, and the last one wins a bunch of money. And so this is kind of taking a bit from Alone, except they're together, like they're in proximity to one another. Like there was a challenge where it was like a tracking challenge where you'd find there were these bones laid out and they had to navigate and follow them, and then find a thing that would take them to a checkpoint where they would get safety. They would get to move on to the next area where they would stay for a week. And this guy comes onto a path of bones, and turns out there's a lady already following that path, but the lady can't find the 10th marker, and he follows it, and he's like, oh shit, we're both here together. Oh, there's the 10th one, and he picks it up, and he's safe. She gets eliminated. She's fucking salty, mad as hell, because they were buddies, and so this is. And
you can't team up. It's whoever gets it.
Sometimes they get put on artificial teams, for the next 2 weeks you're paired up with blah blah this person and this person, and if any one of you quit, then you're all out. This stuff like that. But so this is a gimmicky, drama-ish bushcraft show. It's good. It's really good. It's fun to watch. I like the characters. They're not characters. They're real people. I like these people. There's a heel. They have a real jerk who's
There always is a jerk.
There's always a jerk. His name, he's just hilarious. He's such a jerk. I could never see being like that guy. And I normally like the heels.
Really?
In shows.
It's always good. It's so satisfying when the braggart gets eliminated on these shows. The person that just comes in talking shit about how great they are at bushcraft or whatever. And then they roll their ankle second day or whatever.
Early season of Alone, is it maybe season 2 or season 1, where a guy literally taps on the first day after he had talked so much shit. I was just like, yup.
It's the quiet, confident. They're like, yep, I'm just going to assess the situation and make the best of what I got here to work with. And
like the last season, season 9 of Alone, the guy that won, spoilers, Juan Pablo, he's quiet and he's really humble. And he's like, yes, I've done a lot of long-term survival, and I drink a lot of raw water from creeks so that my body is accustomed to it. I don't have to boil it to sanitize it because my body is accustomed to this. I've done several 45-day challenges on my own for my own enrichment, and I'm just like, that guy's gonna win.
Yeah,
and then he won.
That's it. Yeah, for sure.
It's like, yeah, it's not the Navy SEAL. Nothing against Navy SEALs. It's not the person who goes out there that's like talking about all their accomplishments.
Yeah,
it's just the dude that humbly goes forward and wins and kicks ass. Anyway, these are good shows if you like survivalism. The first one is just straight up bushcraft. The second one is bushcraft plus drama. So what about you? What are you into right now?
So I haven't really been into anything besides Conan for like the last couple weeks. And I already said I've been listening to the 3 audiobook collections, and I'll name those 3 again so you get the right ones.
All right.
That is The Coming of Conan the Cimmerian, The Bloody Crown of Conan, and The Conquering Sword of Conan. And those are all of Howard's stories.
Okay.
So besides that, I wanted to recommend some of my favorite Conan comic books.
Oh.
So these were originally published by Dark Horse Comics, and then Marvel reacquired the license and republished these in big, beautiful collections that are called the Conan Chronicles Epic Collections.
Okay.
And so I want to recommend 2 volumes, one being The Song of Billet, and it collects Conan the Barbarian issues 7 through 25, and it's Conan's adventures on the Black Coast with the Black Corsairs and Billet the Pirate Queen. It's written by Brian Wood and illustrated by Becky Cloonan, among quite a few other people as well, because that's a big chunk of comics.
Yeah.
This is peak Conan. This is my favorite period of Conan, and I think this is some of the best Conan comics that there's been. So there's that volume, and then the other one is King Conan Chronicles Epic Collection, Phantoms and Phoenixes. And this collects just a ton of King Conan comics, many different miniseries.
It would be so cool if someone posted links to these on our socials.
Oh, I mean, I could, yeah.
Then Divers and me could just
you
like,
could find you could find the ones. Yeah. Do you want Amazon links, or what kind of links do you want?
Yeah, I don't know. That seems a little cheesy.
It does.
An Amazon link,
but
maybe the Marvel link. Like,
maybe
do they have a publisher's link or a homepage, like a page for it or something?
Probably. I could find something. I could at least grab the covers to these.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah. So King Conan Chronicles Epic Collection, Phantoms and Phoenixes. Tim Truman is one of the 3 writers of the comics in this collection. I love Tim Truman's Conan comics. When he's very good at adapting Howard, and he's very good at writing his own Conan stories. Like, he just has the voice. So I just wanted to recommend those 2 collections, as there's just some of my favorite Conan comics, and they look cool in the Epic collections. Like, they just look good on the bookshelf.
Okay, cool. All right.
You want to give them the call to action?
Yeah. Subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher, as well as YouTube, Spotify, and Audible. Don't forget to leave us a review. 5-star review costs you nothing, but means everything to us.
And you can, new episodes of Nick and Dave Deep Dive the Metaverse drop the 1st and 15th of every month. And you can find us on all social media platforms across the Metaverse as @DeepDiveTheMeta. We are on Twitter, The Dumpster Fire. We're on Instagram, The Slightly More Entertaining Dumpster Fire. And we're on Pinterest, which no one likes.
Barely on Pinterest.
I haven't updated it in at least a year.
We're also on MySpace.
Yeah.
Well, I guess this is really goodbye.
Don't say goodbye. Say good journey.